We all know You as a show about a misguided stalker who so righteously believes that his actions stem solely from love, and that is what has kept us engaged for the first 3 seasons. We've all had the guilty pleasure of watching Joe's completely unhinged actions that he believes are done in the name of love and passion, with a complete lack of self-awareness of the negative consequences they bring on others. However, in season 4, we see Joe develop from the delusional and controlling stalker he previously was into someone seemingly more self-aware and willing to change his actions. We see this initial change when he first meets Marianne in season 4, where he vows to prove he has changed and fixed their relationship. Now, if you haven't yet watched season 4, I suggest you stop watching this video as it contains spoilers for part 1 and parts of part 2.
In the first part of season 4, Joe seems like he's on the right path, especially with his constant affirmation of his new beliefs and supposed abandonment of his old lifestyle. Perhaps fueled by his experience with Love Gwyn, he even has a whole new look to go with it. However, where You goes incredibly right is with its use of the unreliable narrator. An unreliable narrator is when a story with a first-person perspective is told by an untrustworthy character. This could be due to certain mental problems, foggy memory, if the story is being told by the character, or even the character breaking the fourth wall to mess with the audience. The use of the unreliable narrator in You creates the perfect setup for its plot twist.
In this case, Joe is an unreliable narrator due to his internal mental struggle with 2 sides of his identity: the stalking, controlling killer, and the honest, good man. We see the latter in part 1 of season 4, where Joe seems like he wishes to finally become a changed man, and is finally honest with himself and his glaring faults. He even professes to Marianne that he will prove that she is wrong about him being a murderer and a bad man. He also seems to actively stop himself from pursuing Kate in the same way he would pursue his previous victims, as he claims he is not that person anymore.
What makes this setup in season 1 so great is that it truly leads us to believe that Joe is on a path to redemption. We truly believe as watchers that Joe wants to become better. Even if he may fail, we still get the obvious impression that he wants to succeed. Therefore, we stow away the possibility that Joe could be the one committing the wrongdoings, as we want to believe and follow him as our protagonist. However, we soon learn that these moments never actually happened, and events actually played out much differently than Joe had thought. He had completely tricked his mind into remembering things a certain way in order to make himself believe that he is doing good, and effectively keeps him ignorant of his sins, which we are presented and tricked with as well, resulting in the big reveal and plot twist in part 2. The killer Joe and most viewers thought he was pursuing was actually himself all along. All the bad things that had been happening were him committing them in a state of complete disassociation. Joe's mind is broken with 2 halves, one being his stalker and obsessive tendencies, and the other being his genuine human spirit. What makes this plot twist so great isn't that it was completely unexpected. In fact, we even saw it coming, as evidenced by our YouTube short predicting this outcome before the release of part 2. What actually makes this plot twist great is that it was right in front of our eyes the whole time, but still almost invisible at the same time. What makes a great plot twist is when you can rewatch the show knowing the plot twist and gain even more appreciation for the story, and have new ideas click on subsequent rewatches.
You clearly exceeds in implementing a successful plot twist. Upon re-watching season 4, you'll notice that the twist makes perfect sense and was perfectly foreseeable. You'll notice no one actually interacts with Reese, nor sees him when he's committing his supposed violent acts. For example, Roald is knocked unconscious when Reese has him and Joe chained up in his cellar, suggesting that he is only in Joe's mind and cannot be perceived by anyone else. You'd also notice how Joe is unconscious every time a murder is committed, suggesting that he is completely dissociated and taps into his murderer's identity during these times, and, because of his unreliable narration, does not present these moments to us, the viewers. Furthermore, the fact that the messages between Joe and the killer disappear starts to make a lot more sense once you realize they were never actually happening, and were simply a rationalization Joe, or his other murderous identity, made to himself in his mind to keep him ignorant of his violent actions in order to trick himself into believing that he is doing good. Joe's insanity doesn't come from nowhere though, as we've seen Joe experience hallucinations before and grapple with different sides of his identity, making this plot twist completely reasonable and foreseeable. This makes it even better, as it makes the puzzle pieces fit in our head much smoother than if it were to be something completely out of the blue. It all fits together so perfectly, with this plot twist not just serving as a shock factor to the audience, but a final blow that uses all the buildup in the first part to deliver a satisfying and extremely intricate conclusion that leaves a lot more to tell for the story. This plot twist effectively explores multiple ideas, like rationalization, dissociative identity, and insanity. This idea of unreliable narrators and foreshadowing to create a beautiful plot twist is apparent in other films, such as Shutter Island and Sixth Sense. Let's take a look at those to further explore this concept.
Shutter Island follows what seems to be a police detective inspecting a case on a remote asylum. Throughout the movie, crazy scenarios take place, but it's very possible not to jump to the conclusion that our protagonist is an unreliable narrator. However, after learning the twist and rewatching the movie, a lot of things start to make sense. The movie can now be watched with even more appreciation, recognizing things you missed in the first watch and noticing things you couldn't have noticed without knowing the true outcome. For example, the protagonist's name being an anagram of the murderer he is supposedly chasing. You'll have a lot of "how did I not see it coming" moments, which is indicative of a good plot twist, as a plot twist can completely break a story if not done correctly. It can't just come out of nowhere, as it will instead leave the audience completely jaded and unsatisfied, as it simply seems illogical with where the story was going. Imagine following an intense story with the ending being the protagonist waking up and realizing it was all a dream, with no indication of that happening during the movie. This would result in an extremely dissatisfied experience.
Another great plot twist is Sixth Sense, where it is revealed that Dr. Crow is also dead at the end. This twist will most likely shock anyone watching for the first time, as it is very difficult to see coming due to being invested in the story and not really worrying about this random outcome. However, once this reveal is made, the story then makes a lot more sense. Crow always wears the same clothes, with maybe slight variations, and doesn't really have any real conversations with anyone, which is something that can be further appreciated upon rewatching the movie. Therefore, this idea of unreliable narrators can really help create a beautiful plot twist that only adds to the rewatch value of a movie and doesn't ruin it. The movies don't solely rely on the viewer's shock the first time watching it, but rather the viewer's shock and appreciation of the twist. It must make sense to a certain degree, with slight hints and clues that would become more apparent on rewatch, but also hidden enough so that it will possess some shock value on first watch. The key is, after the plot twist, the movie should make a lot more sense and should be a lot more appreciable.
In conclusion, plot twists are a very delicate device, with them either being a super powerful addition to a story or a complete detriment to it. However, the use of unreliable narrators and foreshadowing prove to be perfect setups and segues into plot twists, creating far more appreciation for the work and possibly even two completely different stories and viewing experiences when rewatching. There should be more plot twists in movies, but not created solely for shock factor, but rather an artistic, ingenious display of story direction. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, or comment if you have enjoyed. But most importantly, make sure to tune in next time for the next definitive opinion.